All right, so we are making good strides here. We have our game working properly. Let's give it a quick run again. Sorry, not a game. We have our app working properly. All right, so there we go. Let's give it a start here. And the animation begins. And all is good. Inhale, exhale, and so forth. Okay, about 7 times. There we go. So it's good job. Perfect. So all is well. But you notice that our times, our number of breaths, and when was last time this happened, they're not really working. So we need to fix that. So in order for us to do that, because I want to make sure that this, whatever we save, the times and the amount of time that we've spent breathing today, or the amount of times that we spend breathing today and so forth, that all of that is actually preserved or is actually saved beyond the session of the application, meaning that we want to save inside of the device. That way, anytime we open the app, we are able to see all that information again. Right? So we're going to use the shared preferences, which is a way for us to save small pieces of data of our apps inside of our devices, so that even if we stop the application, we have different sections of the app, we can still retrieve that information. I'm going to create a new class, but I'm going to add here a new package. I'm going to call this util for utilities. I'm going to right click. I'm going to create a new class. This class, I'm going to call this prefs. Okay, say okay, and there we go. All right, so our prefs here will of course create an instance of shared preferences. At the top here, I'm going to say private, call this shared preferences. I'm going to call preferences. I'm going to create a new constructor here, and I'm not going to pass an actual shared preferences. Actually, I'm going to pass an activity type. Okay, I'm going to say this preferences here, and I'm going to say activity.getPreferences, and I'm going to pass, of course, activity.modePrivate. Create this shared preferences, which is a file actually saved inside of our device. I want this to be private. That way, only this application is able to access that information. That's all we're doing here. Next, I'm going to create a few getters and setters. Now, the idea, if you look at our app, we have number of breaths, last time you did the exercise, and of course the amount of sessions or minutes you've done today. There's 3 main fields or data points that we need to save. So let's start with setting the breaths, right? So I'm going to say public void set breaths, and I'm going to pass an integer for breaths, right? So this is how many times we've breathed, how many sessions we've done today. So I'm going to go ahead and say preferences, right? This is the object that we instantiated here. I'm going to say .edit because we want to make sure to grab the edit feature of our preferences. I'm going to just put int. I'm going to pass in here a key. In this case, it's going to be breaths. And I'm going to pass our breaths. For that, I'm going to say .apply. Okay, so this now we are saving our breaths into system file. Okay, now we want to be able to, of course, get those breaths as well. So I'm going to say public int because I want to return an integer. I'm going to say get breaths. We don't need to pass anything, and I'm going to just say return preferences, get int, we call breaths, right? And just in case nothing happens, just in case at this point the user doesn't have anything, we have to have some sort of a default value. In this case, it's just going to be 0. Okay, let's keep going here. What would be the next thing? Let's talk about the set session. I'm going to say public void set sessions. I'm going to pass an integer. I'm going to call this session. pretty much do the same thing that we did before. I'm going to copy this and paste it in here. Instead of breaths, this is going to be session, and we're going to pass our session, which is being passed as an integer. Right? Of course, don't ever forget to apply or commit, but now if we add commit here, because that's what previously Android would let us do, but the APIs have changed a little bit, so now we call it apply instead of commit. There we go. All right, so of course when that happens, we also want to be able to get, so say public and say get sessions. Say return preferences that get all sessions. Remember, these has to be the same name, so it has to be session, as we said. Let's say sessions, just to be consistent. And I'm going to pass 0 as well. And let's keep going here. The next is going to be public void. I'm going to set date. I'm going to pass here long type, because we are actually going to save the moment they've done the first session and they are done with that. We're going to save it as in milliseconds that we get from our system, right? So it's going to be long type, which means it can be a long number. I'm going to call this milliseconds. And I'm going to say preferences dot set. Oh, that edit, that's right. Let's say that put long, right? Because we are passing in long. And this is going to be seconds, milliseconds as such. Of course, you're going to be able to get it. It's going to be a long. In fact, and next we are going to create a get type. And next we're going to say public. This is going to be a string type. The reason why is because we are interested in getting these milliseconds, and we are going to parse it or convert it into a string that would say, for instance, 11:45 a.m. right? Because as we save, when we save, we're actually saving as milliseconds into our system, but that's not very helpful for our user, right? So we are going to actually translate whatever we get, shared preference, and then we are going to transfer or parse it into something that we can actually see and make sense out of it. In this case, I'm going to say get date. No need to pass anything. All right, so what are we going to do here? There's a few things we're going to be able to do. The first thing is I'm going to create a long called second date, okay? And I'm going to say preferences dot get long. I'm going to pass seconds, so we are now retrieving from our shared preferences. Let's just pass here 0 for now. Okay, as the default if there's nothing there. And once you do that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to call the calendar class. I'm going to say calendar, because calendar will have all the information we need to actually get those seconds that we're getting here, those milliseconds, if you will, and transform it into actually time that we can see. So I'm going to say calendar, I'm going to call CL, or let's call calendar as such. And I'm going to say calendar.getInstance, right? Because this is a singleton. Notice we're not saying new calendar. We just say calendar.getInstance. That way we just get the correct instance every time, and we don't have to create different objects in memory. Now that we have our calendar, I'm going to go ahead and say calendar. I'm going to set the time in millis. So that means I'm actually going to pass the second date. In fact, this should be probably milli date as such, okay, because those are milliseconds. So we need to pass that. So just say, okay, calendar, take these seconds, milliseconds here, and do your work. Make sure that everything is set up in the background. That way I can ask you to give me the actual minutes or the actual time that you are getting from the milliseconds. So for now, here I'm going to create a string called time, and I'm going to append, I'm going to say calendar dot get. The moment you do that, now we have fields that we can get from our calendar since we have passed the milliseconds here, okay? These fields are called calendar. Those are static fields. I can get the day. I'm going to go ahead and get hour of day, like 11 p.m. or 11 a.m. and so like 11:20, okay, as such. And I'm going to append, say plus, I'm going to also say calendar dot get. I want to get another field. In this case, I'm going to call calendar again dot minute, like that. And because we want to be able to have PM and AM at the top, what I'm going to do, let me create another string here because we can actually get that information. I'm going to say string AM or PM as such. And at the bottom here, after our instantiation of our calendar, I'm going to say int A. Okay, I'm going to say calendar dot get. I want to say calendar dot AM PM as such. And then I'm going to say if A is equal to calendar dot AM. Okay. And I'm just going to say AM or PM is going to be set to AM. I'm going to say else AM or PM. In any other case, is going to be PM. That's it. So now we can append this AM or PM right here. Say plus. Give it a little space there and pass it on like that. In fact, this has to be closed. Just like this. And then I'm going to say return time. Let's finalize this like this. All right. So let's go over one more time. So we get our milliseconds because that's what we saved earlier, right? As a long, and then we instantiated the calendar class, which knows everything that it needs to know to return or to create an actual date, hours, and so forth. And then we have to set that to millis, so pass in the seconds, milliseconds that we're receiving. And of course, here what we did, we are actually getting the AM and PM values. Okay, so if we say if calendar is AM, if it's in the morning, then we're going to append AM into our string. That's just for us to have a complete string that says the hour of the day, the minutes, and then whether it's AM or PM. Okay, that's all. And then of course we create that string and we return that string, which contains the parse or the converted date from milliseconds that we put inside of our shared preference to actually date that we can actually see, the hours and the minutes. That's all. All right, done with our prefs here. Let's go to our main activity because that's where we're going to be using it from. So once we're done, we can go to our main activity and use it. And that's what we're going to be doing in the next video. All right, so I'll see you next.